Well, returning now to that reversal by AIB of its proposal to make 70 branches cashless, we're joined by John O'Connell, General Secretary of the Financial Services Union. John, thanks for coming in to speak to us. Your union believes this is a good decision that AIB has made. Why do you think they changed their mind?
I think public pressure and political pressure, and I think the statement from the Taoiseach was, I suppose, helpful in that regard in getting them to focus on this issue. And as they said, the public disquiet with the change.
Now, the AIB had signalled it was to make some kind of announcement this week. Did your union have any idea? The government say they didn't know it was happening.
We knew that something was afoot along the lines of what was announced, but we didn't know where and the extent. So we learned when everybody else learned in terms of when staff were advised, and we were advised simultaneously.
And what would it have meant for staff if it were to go ahead? 70 branches going cashless?
I think it's more change to staff, and in a cashless branch it's less staff. Bank staff are already at chronic numbers, and so they've, in terms of the pressure that they feel, and so it would mean another big change, probably transfers and so forth for staff. And a lot of these branches are distances from main head offices that are going to be the cashless branches they suggested, or the cash branches they suggested.
So the difficulties that people in communities would have had are similar to the difficulties staff would have had if this had have happened?
So there was extraordinary distances, some of them 60 kilometres and more, in terms of that people would have to travel to access cash. And that's a huge issue for people, the access to cash. It's a huge debate in New Zealand, in the UK, and we believe it'll be part of the big debate that's taking place in the banking review here.
Because things have changed in the past couple of years, especially because of the pandemic. People are using cash less. Isn't this inevitable? Maybe it was put off this week. It's going to happen.
I think change is inevitable. It's how change comes about is the big issue. And that's where I think consumers and staff thought that this was too much too soon, that there wasn't proper consultation or debate. And we've seen examples time and time again of people identifying how their business thrives on cash and so forth. And no real solutions put forward to people. They were just going to be left in that situation. The issue of digital literacy is also a huge issue. People, particularly older, but not just older, vulnerable people as well, have challenges in terms of digital literacy that, again, wasn't dealt with first before any of these changes were visited on them.
But do you think this is just going to be pushed down the road? It probably happen maybe before the end of the year, if not in the coming years.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen by the end of the year. I think change will occur. But what we say is that the future for banking is a blended model where people who want and need access to branches and cash have that access. And then that for those people who are comfortable in digital space can have access to digital space. We think that banking needs to move from a shareholder bank system to a stakeholder bank system where worker directors and consumer directors are on the boards of the banks in order that decisions like this can be fully vetted before they're unleashed on people.
But it's still a private company and they have got to make profits for their shareholders, of which the state is a major shareholder. So you can see the conflict there for the government, because obviously if people are opposed to it, the government has to listen. But at the same time, the government needs to make its money back on this because it's our money, it's taxpayers' money.
I think while the issue today is cashless branches, the overall issue is the culture and change agenda of the banks. And like this is a very good example of how not to do it in terms of visiting such an enormous change on people with no notice. There's a better way to bring about change. And we believe things like stakeholder banks with consumer directors and with worker directors would lead to a much better decision-making process. Surely somebody along the chain of command in the bank could have seen this coming in terms of the public outcry. But the culture speaks to going ahead in any event, regardless of what the public outcry is. And I think that's where a lot of this work needs to focus before any further changes of this size are visited on people.
Because let's not forget, it's not just AIB. Bank of Ireland closed 88 branches last October. KBC and Ulster Bank are leaving the market. The sands are shifting in terms of banking. And do you believe that customers are going to be left in a position where they're just at the mercy of whatever banks decide because they need to make a profit?
I think they are at the moment, but they don't have to be, right? So the consumer code is 10 years out of date. right? That's the central bank's responsibility, and they should urgently update that. That's from a pre-Revolut, pre-mobile phone app era. And so it can't deal with this type of situation. Equally, the Department of Finance is going to develop a policy document out of the banking forum, and that should set out concrete proposals on how change occurs in the sector for consumers and for staff.
Okay, John O'Connell, we have to leave it there, but thanks for coming in to speak to us this evening.
Thank you.